Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at a moment that many analysts are calling one of the most serious crises of authority Vladimir Putin has faced since coming to power. Reports emerging from multiple military and intelligence observers suggest that control over Russia's military structure has fractured in ways that were once considered unthinkable. When officials at the Pentagon describe the situation as an unprecedented breakdown, it signals not just battlefield setbacks, but a deeper systemic problem inside Russia's command and control structure. At the center of this issue is the growing gap between political leadership and military reality. For years, the Russian system depended on a rigid chain of command, centralized decision-making, and strict loyalty to the Kremlin. That model is now under intense strain. Orders from the top are reportedly being questioned, delayed, or poorly executed, revealing cracks in a structure that was designed to appear unbreakable. One major factor behind this breakdown is the prolonged conflict that has exhausted manpower, equipment, and morale. Russian forces have faced sustained pressure, and losses have accumulated over time. When military units are stretched thin and rotations are limited, discipline weakens. Soldiers begin to question strategies, commanders struggle to enforce authority, and the entire system becomes vulnerable to internal friction. Another key issue is the rivalry among different power centers within Russia's security apparatus. The regular army, private military groups, intelligence agencies, and regional forces do not always operate with shared objectives. Competition for resources, influence, and recognition has intensified. This rivalry undermines unity and creates confusion on the ground, where coordination is critical. Communication failures have also played a major role. Modern warfare relies heavily on secure, reliable communication systems. Reports suggest that Russian units have faced repeated disruptions, leading to situations where frontline commanders are cut off from higher command. When information does not flow smoothly, decisions are made blindly, increasing the risk of mistakes and losses. The Pentagon's assessment points to these combined issues as signs of a deeper institutional weakness. This is not simply about one failed operation or one bad decision. It reflects structural problems that have developed over years, now exposed under the pressure of sustained conflict. Such exposure can be more damaging than external attacks because it erodes confidence from within. For Vladimir Putin, control has always been a central pillar of his leadership style. Maintaining authority over the military is essential not only for national security, but also for political survival. The perception that he is losing grip over the armed forces challenges the image of strength he has carefully cultivated. In authoritarian systems, perception often matters as much as reality. There are also signs of growing dissatisfaction among mid-level officers. These individuals are crucial because they translate strategic decisions into tactical actions. If they feel unsupported, misled, or sacrificed by higher leadership, their willingness to follow orders without question diminishes. This creates a dangerous environment where compliance becomes conditional rather than automatic. Logistical failures have further compounded the problem. Supplying troops with ammunition, food, medical care, and functioning equipment is fundamental to maintaining morale and effectiveness. Persistent shortages send a clear message to soldiers that the system is failing them. Over time, this weakens loyalty and discipline, accelerating the breakdown of control. Economic pressure plays a role as well. Sanctions and wartime spending have strained Russia's economy, limiting the government's ability to sustain long-term military operations. Budget constraints affect training, maintenance, and compensation. When promises are not met, trust erodes and resentment grows within the ranks. The Pentagon's language is particularly striking because it suggests a shift in how U.S. defense officials view Russia's military stability. Describing the situation as unprecedented implies that the level of dysfunction goes beyond normal wartime challenges. It suggests that the internal coherence of the Russian military is at risk with potential consequences that extend beyond the battlefield. Internationally, this perception could alter strategic calculations. Allies and adversaries alike closely monitor signs of weakness in major powers. A military that appears disorganized and divided may invite increased pressure, both diplomatically and militarily. This could further complicate Russia's position on the global stage. Domestically, the implications are equally serious. The Russian public has long been told that the military is strong, disciplined, and victorious. Contradictory reports of chaos and breakdown challenge this narrative. Managing public perception becomes harder when information leaks through social media, independent analysts, and foreign sources. Putin's response to such crises has historically involved reshuffling leadership, increasing repression, or doubling down on propaganda. However, these tools may be less effective if the underlying problems remain unresolved. Replacing commanders does not fix systemic issues, and increased pressure can sometimes worsen morale rather than restore it. There is also the question of loyalty at the highest levels. When senior commanders sense instability, they may prioritize self-preservation over strict obedience. This does not necessarily mean open rebellion, but it can manifest as hesitation, selective compliance, or quiet resistance. Over time, these behaviors weaken centralized control. The role of private military forces adds another layer of complexity. These groups operate with different incentives and loyalties, sometimes answering directly to powerful individuals rather than the state. Their presence blurs the lines of authority and can undermine the traditional military hierarchy. Integrating or controlling such forces becomes increasingly difficult during prolonged conflict. Training standards have reportedly suffered as well. Rapid mobilization and rushed deployments leave little time for proper preparation. Inexperienced soldiers placed in high pressure situations are more likely to make mistakes and less likely to trust leadership. This creates a feedback loop where poor performance leads to harsher discipline, further damaging morale. The Pentagon's assessment also highlights the importance of institutional trust. A military functions effectively when soldiers trust their commanders, and commanders trust the system above them. Once this trust breaks down, rebuilding it is extremely challenging, especially in the middle of ongoing operations. From a strategic perspective, loss of control over the military limits a leader's options. Large-scale offensives become riskier, and defensive operations may lack coordination. This constrains decision-making and forces reliance on short-term fixes rather than coherent long-term planning. It is important to note that an unprecedented breakdown does not mean immediate collapse. Military institutions can continue functioning despite significant internal problems. However, the margin for error becomes much smaller. Unexpected challenges, whether internal or external, can have disproportionate effects. The situation also raises concerns about escalation management. A fragmented command structure increases the risk of miscalculations. Decisions involving advanced weapons systems require clear authority and precise communication. Any ambiguity in control could have serious consequences. For Putin, restoring control would require more than symbolic gestures. It would involve addressing logistical failures, clarifying chains of command, resolving rivalries, and rebuilding trust within the ranks. These are long-term tasks that cannot be accomplished quickly, especially under ongoing pressure. The Pentagon's remarks serve as a warning rather than a prediction. They indicate that the current trajectory is unsustainable without significant reform or adjustment. Whether such changes are possible within Russia's political system remains an open question. As this situation continues to develop, the world will be watching closely. The stability of one of the world's largest military powers has implications far beyond its borders. An unprecedented breakdown in control is not just a domestic issue, it is a global concern. In the end, this moment underscores a broader lesson about power and control. Strength built on rigid centralization can appear formidable, but it may lack resilience. When stress tests the system, weaknesses emerge quickly. The challenge for any leader is not just to command, but to maintain the trust and cohesion that make command effective. For now, the reports suggest that Vladimir Putin faces one of the most complex challenges of his leadership. Whether he can reassert control over the military, or whether these cracks will continue to widen, is a question that will shape the future of Russia and influence global security dynamics for years to come.